Hello, Mr. Roscoe. We're back on the
Okay,
online
Ryan.
drinks. Good to see you again, mate. Have you got a drink?
Thanks, mate.
Have you got a drink in your hand? Oh, yeah, there you go. I'll do.
Do me.
Um, yeah, a bit of time between episodes. Hopefully, I think we'll have our schedules set up properly. That way, we don't have to wait so long before an episode. But a lot of things have happened lately.
Oh, yeah. It's a
Uh,
pretty heavy news
and
cycle.
Yeah, it started off with this whole Tucker Carlson interview with Putin. Number one, I did not even know that he wanted to interview Putin, and the fact that he interviewed Putin, I think it's shows to how much he's respected around the world. That Putin would, Vladimir will give him some time. Uh,
Absolutely. And I think it's good too, because, I mean, at the end of the day, um, it's one thing to go to, it's like backing a person with unpopular views is a hard measure. Backing a person with very popular views is very easy. Um, if you're in a position where you can get out uh, different views, different takes. I think it behooves you to do that if you've got the ability to get that voice out. Um, if things are buried, then things aren't
keep talking.
challenged.
Keep talking.
Yeah, things aren't challenged. And I think not only that, but if you don't have the ability to bring out unpopular views, then what's going to happen is people aren't going to know what they are or misinterpret what those views are. Um, secrets will lurk, misunderstandings, prejudice, all of that. It, I think, I mean, I've got some mixed views about Putin and who he is and what he is. I don't think I'm overly, generous in how I view him. At the same stage, I don't think that I'm, uh, uh, you know, too critical either. I think that you have to be able to look at people like that. I think it's perfectly fine to do that. So I guess that would be the first thing to run through.
Yeah. Well,
How how do you see Putin as a person generally, or and his leadership style?
well, to be honest, I think there's a lot of secrecy uh,
Mm,
up at Russia. I don't know what to believe if I can
hmm
if I can be very honest with you. I think it's very easy, and I think watching his interview was very refreshing.
mm,
I think one of the things that he mentioned in the Tucker Carlson interview is that um, the world's view of Russia is controlled by media, and media, to the largest extent, is controlled by USA.
hmm
So they are able to portray an image of Russia, an image of Putin to be of a certain way, and that I in a lot of ways believe.
hmm
But there is a that US definitely has a stronghold on media as a country, and they until the very recent past have controlled the narrative all the way through. The way they want the world to see what they're doing, they're very good
100%.
at it. And it takes you know really courageous journalists or really courageous news channels who work hard to uncover the truth. So I guess I look at every politician with a grain of salt.
Mm,
There's not a saying, but there was something I heard recently where they were saying there's a certain kind of person that wants to be a president, prime
yeah,
minister. leader. Okay. And, you know, and there's a reason why the best people in the world are not in those positions,
Hmm.
because they don't want the attention that that brings. And some of the people who get there, they love the attention that that
Hmm.
brings. I don't see him as better than Biden or worse than Biden or better than Trump or worse than Trump or better than Obama or worse than Obama, because he's been the president through all of them. Um, but yeah, look, to be honest, I see him as a leader of a free country, and
Hmm.
they have their, I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? They have their own mission, okay, of what they want Russia to be like. And it was very interesting at the start of that interview. He went, I think, the first close to half hour or maybe close to a full 45 minutes of the interview is just him going back and explaining the history of Ukraine and Russia going back 1,000 years.
Hmm.
Um, and I think the way he sees it, he feels that the world has a single view of the whole situation, and that is the viewpoint of America. And there's bits of it that I didn't fully understand, and I dare I say I'll have to watch it again, to get a good idea of what exactly are his reasons for invading Ukraine. Um, but there was also a bit in the interview where Tucker Carlson um, talks about this journalist that's currently imprisoned in Russia,
Hmm.
and he's 32 years old, so he's a relatively young fella, and and he made a request to Putin, like, why are you holding him? Why don't you release him? And Putin said, look, if there is some kind of offer in return for him, we would be, would be willing to talk. Which made it seem like he wanted maybe one of the Russian criminals, like an exchange, like they did with the WNBA player.
Yeah, I was going to say
Yeah,
they did that with her. Why wouldn't they do it with this
correct,
guy? Takes
exactly.
the chance
Uh,
to put it out there.
yeah. So, but Tucker said, look, he seems like a no sort of like he's not very well known. He's a young guy who seems to have made a small mistake. I don't think this is worth doing a transfer over,
Mm.
like, sort of thing. But he just said, but again, I do not know how true this is, but Putin said that, look, he was caught trying to get some classified documents in the wrong way.
Hmm.
So, punishments are there for a reason.
Yeah.
So we do not treat him as any less than a criminal, a criminal of the country, I guess, trying to steal some documentation, classified documentation.
Mm.
So that's what his reasoning was. But he said, look, I'll be happy to look into this further, and see if there's a possibility of a release here. So he was very, like, he wasn't like, he didn't shut the gate on it. Like, no,
No.
I'm not going to let him go unless you give me such and such that's in the US jail. Um, so he seemed like, firstly, I think it's a very interesting move on his part to
Mm.
say yes to an interview. And I must admit, like, the people who are in his team, they have done their due diligence in terms of understanding who they wanted to speak to in USA. And they spoke to him. He's someone, as we know, he's been, I guess, I guess he got fired from Fox News,
Hmm.
and he is not went and sought allegiance anywhere else. He started his own thing, and
Hmm.
he's he's like the closest between the older generation and
Hmm.
the new generation,
Yeah.
and he presents himself in a very professional way. He's not your smart casual. He's always in a
Hmm.
suit. He's the way he's got his hair. He's not trying to look young. He's I don't think he's very old. He must be in his
He's
40s.
my age.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Is he 50 plus?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, I didn't think he was that old. I thought he was maybe in early 40s. I thought.
No.
Yeah, he looks good for his age. Um, and yeah, so like someone who everyone wanted since he
Yeah.
left Fox News, or was fired from Fox News, I should say. Everyone wanted him to join their team. Everyone would have paid him whatever he wanted.
Hmm.
He decided, no, I'm just going to do my own thing. And I think his views and whatnot must have persuaded Putin to, talk to him rather than
Yeah.
anyone else in the American media, which I thought this gives him so much power, Tucker Carlson.
Hmm.
The fact that he has been able to get an interview with Putin, I think
Yeah.
that just speaks volumes. Even if what they spoke about was not going to be interesting enough, the fact that he got an interview with Putin, there is no one in the international space that's bigger than Putin that an American journalist could get in front of.
Mm.
So I think in that way, it's this is probably going to be one. I mean, let's see what comes out of this interview. But from what I'm seeing, there's a big buzz already on the internet from the things
Mm.
that were discussed, how they were discussed, how Tucker Carlson is now being viewed. Obviously he was well respected, but now I think he's on a different stratosphere now.
Well, there's quite an outrage against him. They're trying to put sanctions on him and all kinds of things.
Against
Um,
against Putin, you mean?
no, against Carlson.
Oh,
Yeah, a lot of the European nations and whatever, because he spoke to Putin. It was the wrong person to speak to
oh, okay, gotcha, I gotcha. So
instead of speaking to.
but he's
They would have
independent.
been quite happy if he had spoken to Zelensky, but he spoke to Putin.
Well, but Zelensky is available.
Mm.
He's talking. He's comes to USA. He's spoken over there. All the questions he's answered. So there is nothing. There's no secrecy about what he wants.
Yeah,
And
but it's very much us and them, wrong and right, all that kind of thing.
yeah,
Um,
it is never that clear.
yeah, Putin is the bad guy. Zelensky is the good guy. You know, if you speak to the enemy, you're a bad guy.
Yeah,
It's very much like that for a lot of the media and a lot of the political establishment. The truth is, there are objectionable things about Putin, um, and as a leader, you might not like him. As even in the Russian Ukraine conflict, you might have staked your peg on one of those two nations and therefore see him as the villain. All of that's fine. But at the end of the day, Tucker Carlson didn't do anything wrong. And as I was saying before, the fact that he, you know, was prepared to speak to someone, unpopular views are the more difficult to defend and they're the more difficult to bring to light because people shut down. They refuse to listen to views they don't like. They want to censor it, shut it down, dismiss it, all of that kind of thing. I think that the main thing is when it comes to these kind of views, is you have to realize that if you're not bringing out um, unpopular views, and I was saying this before, it's where secrets, prejudice, it's where misinterpretation, miscommunication, all of those kind of things start festering. It's not something that you want to do. You want to be able to expose opinions, good and bad. Let decent opinions flourish, and be very wary of the people who are shutting down opinions that they don't like.
And not just opinions, also conversations. Like,
Yeah.
let's not talk to Putin. He's not worth speaking to. Uh,
Hmm.
and in no, like, I love to read, read people's body language. It's something that I quite enjoy. I wouldn't say I'm great at it or good at it, but I'm I can judge a few things by the body language. And his body language during the interview, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of experts chiming in on body language, and I'll be curious to watch some of those videos as well. I mean, I guess assessing the body language of Putin during the interview, whether he's lying, whether he's making things up, the cues
Mm.
that a person gives. He was like what you saw in the last 10 minutes of the interview. He was
Mm.
like that throughout. It didn't seem like he was hiding anything. It didn't seem like he was trying to lie about anything. He believed what he believes.
Mm.
Didn't come off like it didn't come. I mean, it didn't come off as someone who's, like there were uncomfortable questions that Tucker did ask, and he
Mm-hmm.
didn't seem flustered or or anything. The way he responded seemed to me that he was being genuine, that there is a reasonable person
Mm-hmm.
here. He's not an unreasonable person. He's
Mm.
a reasonable person speaking here. And you know, again, that's just judging body language. I don't
Yeah.
understand the policies, what he was offered, what he didn't accept, and all that sort of thing. I'll have to watch the interview possibly a couple more times before I can sort of, I guess, speak more on it. But from what I could tell, it didn't come across as a person that cannot be reasoned with. Um,
Mm.
I'm always wary of the West wanting to, I guess, ostracize someone, who comes from a country where they speak a completely different language. They don't care two hoots about English, and it's
Mm.
very difficult for us non-Russians to
Mm.
understand them. And I guess we can just go with the popular opinion that they are just brutes, that they are just, they're just here to take over the world and you know um, let go of nuclear bombs and destroy this, destroy that. When it could be, it's a lot more complicated than that. And um, judging from what the way Putin was talking about nuclear attacks and all that, that's very preposterous idea that was being thrown around that Russia could do that. From the way it
Yeah.
was stated.
I think they definitely other Putin. Like I've got no doubt in that at all. He's the big bad wolf. He's a monster. Once you make someone a monster in your mind, then whatever you do against a monster, you're perfectly justified in doing because they're a monster.
Correct.
They don't deserve grace, or they don't deserve charity, or they don't deserve um, anything, any kind of compassion at all, because they're monsters. And so you've othered them, you've made them that, and in that way you can forgive yourself for anything that you might do against them. And I think people do that. At the same time, I'm very realistic about the fact that Putin is ex-KGB. He isn't a sweet, cuddly old man. He's a bit of a killer.
Oh,
Um,
yes.
he he is also a communist. He comes from a communist country, so I'm aware of that too. Um, and I'm also aware that he's very pro-Russian propaganda. So he is going to you're never going to get a situation where he kind of says, "Oh, you know what? I stuffed up a little bit, on that," or I didn't quite, shoot that. Even when he's kind of being very magnanimous, which he does do quite
Yeah.
often,
Yeah.
it's not. There's never any kind of poor self-reflection. It's kind of like, well, hey, look, we're prepared to come to the party. We're prepared to help you guys out. We're prepared to, but there's not, we're prepared to even compromise. But it's always kind of, I guess, framed in terms of we're doing you a favor here. If we do this, it's as a favor to you. It's not as a reflection that we've done anything wrong to need this. We're just doing this for you because we're such nice people.
Yeah.
When they do, and at every chance available, he'll put activities in the not only the worst light, but the most incompetent light. So it's hey, they've been foolish, but if they do foolish things, they get foolish results, all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so very much downplaying his part and and really making the other side seem completely, not even like a threat, but more of a foolish, reckless, incompetent kind of basis. So I'm very, and but at the same time, he's a very strong leader. He's not. I don't think anyone in their right mind would call him weak
No,
or unintelligent. He's neither
very,
of those things.
very well spoken, very well thought points. Yeah,
Yeah, he's
yeah,
he's been doing this for years, and I think anyone who makes those kind of things, you know, does. And I mean, another thing that I'd have to say, and I'm sorry, I'm spitting all of this out. Another thing I'd have to say with him, and when he does criticize things, the points that he makes, for the most part, land pretty solidly, and not for the basis of their propaganda, which is definitely there, or their spin, which is definitely there, but purely because he goes for fairly low hanging fruit because that's been put there because the some of the things that the US does and how they react. For example, I'm sure he does this to every nation, but some of the things he's coming up with, that I saw even in the last 10 minutes there, he's quite right. The US has done some pretty dumb things in how they've conducted themselves, wasting $72 billion, incurring their incursions onto the space to violate agreements they came up with years ago. They've all done deliberately. All of these things, he's quite right in saying it's low hanging fruit, but it's low hanging fruit for a reason. The US has done the wrong thing. Now they can try and downplay that or excuse themselves, do whatever. But if he points it out and says you're incompetent, look what you did. We had an agreement, you broke that. That's on you. That's to some degree a pretty fair call. Now the fact that he would really kind of rub it in is kind of to be expected. That's his manner. And to kind of say,
well, the same
well,
thing is done to him as well. So
yeah, but I guess what I'm saying is that he's always going to make, how can I say it? He will frame things to make the Russians look the least objectionable, and the least at fault, and anything that he would do in order to kind of help the situation, make him seem the most beneficial, such
great.
a benefactor,
Yeah, but also again,
doing them a favor.
doesn't Biden do this?
Oh, no, I think Biden.
Doesn't China do the same thing? Doesn't India do the same thing? It's like,
Oh, no, I think that most countries do not do anything even close to how Putin does it. I think that
well,
they will more
no one,
they'll lie
yeah, but no
more.
one accepts blame. No one accepts blame.
Mm. I
Which
think
global leader do you
countries.
see accepting blame? It just doesn't happen. They always will say, "Look,
Oh
we
no, but
did this. The other side didn't meet us. The other side let us down."
no. What I see with people like Biden's mouthpiece is not his secretary, or the one who gets up on the podium to answer all his questions, Corinne, someone or other.
So, yep.
Um, she she lies straight out with a lot of what she says. So they come at her with a very specific question. She'll actually lie.
Yeah.
She'll deflect. She'll do all of those type of things. China will more censor what they say. So there'll
Yeah, but
be
she's not the, yeah,
questions.
but I guess what we're talking about is the leader. Like when a leader talks,
Mhm.
when a leader talks, when Biden talks, when Obama talks, these people. I do not recall any U.S. president ever saying we screwed up. It was us. You
Yeah,
know,
no.
it's always the other side. And when Putin does it, he's just doing what others are also doing. They don't want to talk about
Mm.
shortcomings. They always want to talk about the opponent's shortcomings. You know,
Oh yeah, I just think that his particular style of doing it um, is quite a lot different to some of the other things. Where I and in some respects, I'm certainly not objecting to the game. I'm just pointing out the player. Um, I think that he's very, very clever in how he goes about things. But I note how he spins things and everything. And to his credit, he's done this for years and he's done it very, very well. And he does make his opponents look really dumb and really, really incompetent. And to an extent, um, exposes a lot of their very real faults. You know, I mean, I can remember with the Russian interference things, he had a blast with that. Because at the end of the day, he was getting a lot of attention, and he wasn't even behind it. He didn't see it as particularly threatening to him. He was laughing, whenever he was mentioned about that, and would say, look at the US, and I think to a big extent, he he whether he sees the US or any particular country as a threat, he'd never lets on, and he never would let on. He The way he always makes things sound is that Russia is the pinnacle, and these other nations, their little games and their silly japes and jeering and all of that kind of thing is kind of immature, childish, incompetent, buffoonish, that kind of thing. And I think the way he does that is quite a sight. But I'm aware that this is how he's kind of portraying himself in that respect.
yeah. Look. I'll be honest. I find that I find this a normal politician way of talking. I see
Mm.
it everywhere. When I was in India, I saw Indian politicians doing this. We see it in Australia. Between the left and the right, it's the same. Like no one wants to. It's a defeat. It's
Mm.
seen as a sign of defeat if you are saying that, oh, I screwed up. I should be
Mm.
better. Next time I'll be better. I think that's seen as a sign of defeat. So it's always about deflecting the blame to the other side. And I just I mean what I felt I saw today is a normal politician.
Mm.
And politicians in my opinion can be reasoned with, and possibly if they are able to strike a deal, he doesn't seem like someone who doesn't want to talk. Uh,
No, well, I think
if
so
he didn't
too,
want
and
to
I
talk,
think
he would not have done that interview.
no, and I think something that Trump said many years ago now is
Yeah,
he
I
was
guess.
saying he's perfectly prepared to speak with Putin
Yeah,
about things, knowing that Putin will want the best for Russia, and he'll want the best for America. And if they both know that they both want best for each other's countries, then that will actually bar a lot of their conversations. However, there will be areas in which they'll both equally gain a benefit by working cooperatively
Yeah.
and without, doing the other one in.
I think that
And
I think that's the reason why Putin said yes to this interview.
mm,
He can, I guess you're hearing straight from the horse's mouth what he wants.
mm,
Um, and I just hope this will help in easing tension because a lot of lives have been lost, in the Ukrainian side and the Russian side. And I always find, loss of life, young men and women. It's just always, it's such a waste. So I hope,
absolutely.
as a result of this, that something good will come out and possibly people will see, okay, there's a man on the other side that we can be reasoned with. Let's try again. Uh,
Mm.
and yeah, look, I'm hopeful.
Yeah, I agree. I do think that uh, Putin, as I said, is very intelligent. He's very powerful. It's a powerful nation. I think that he definitely wants the best thing for Russians. If there can be things that will benefit his country, that not necessarily at the detriment of another country or other countries, I think that good things can come out of it. And I think that it's perfectly reasonable to say, incursions against his country, against agreements that were made, um, it is a bad thing and was wrong and is wrong. I think that that's perfectly fine. I think there's definitely things in there that he's got legitimate grudges about, and I think he should be able to express that. I do think that there should be, people should be prepared to, go to the canvases are about different matters, and I think that it's okay for people to be able to sit down and say, "Hey, we're going to revisit this again." Um, this is obviously not in anyone's best interest. What is it that you all want?
Yeah.
But I think that ego, is getting in the way of old men to the detriment of young men. If it was the old men on the front line, the war would stop pretty quickly. They'd find any way to broker peace.